Hello YouTube audience, today is July the 18th, 2020. I want to do a quick update on this Chinese juniper. So I name it Adam because it is the first bonsai I made from last year, and it was from a nursery stock I bought from Fred Meyer. So basically you can get from anywhere. The variety is old gold, and it's surviving pretty well, and it's growing and elongating. There are several things. I put in some wire to set all the branches in the places that I want to set them. Most of them set pretty well, so I took them off, and maybe with the exception of they all set, but maybe I would still need to adjust this branch a little bit, but most of them set pretty well. So when we observe these closely, because the first styling, obviously I cut off a lot of branches. Originally this was just a bush and there was no shape, no line to it, and now you can see we have made some sort of line, mostly utilizing just by reduction, utilize the original line of the tree. I think the first time I make this into a bonsai, I may have cut off, I would say maybe 90% of the foliage. So one thing that I learned since then was when the juniper, this is Juniper chinensis. When the juniper, when you work on a juniper too much, or they consider significant stress, you put significant stress to the juniper, they reverse to these foliage called the juvenile foliage. When you look into the branches, these old and dark green foliage, they are the mature foliage of this tree, and when they went through significant stress, like a lot of pruning of the branches, a lot of root pruning, things like that, they would grow these needle-like foliage, juvenile foliage. It is very sufficient in generating energy. So you can see the juvenile foliage, they are all over the tree. So the tree is doing its best to recover from the initial styling and repotting of the tree. At the time, I was repotting and styling at the same time, which now I obviously know it's a pretty bad idea because it is too much work on the tree. But since these junipers are extremely strong tree, it survived. So now I would just let it grow free without working it on it for a while so that it can recover, which they would show these juvenile foliage would gradually become the mature foliage, like these ones again. So these ones, you can see on the same branch, you can see these mature foliage and these juvenile foliage. So that's something very interesting to me. It's like every time I'm working on a tree, it's like asking them a question, and they are going to respond to your question. What if I do this amount of work to the tree? How would the tree respond? And this is the response they give me. This tree survived, and it's been through a lot of stress, so it's respond in growing these juvenile foliage. Other than that, it's doing very well. And I took off the wire just now, and most of the branches don't have wire mark except for a few. Maybe this one has some wire mark on it, but for evergreen tree like a juniper, these mark will heal very fast, so it is not a big deal when we get some wire mark on these tree. The other thing that I'm seeing on this tree that may affect its health is the soil, because I use the original soil from the nursery stock. It's not draining too well, but I also don't want to change a repot in the middle of the summer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some holes in there, so that water can actually go into the soil more easily. Think about how deep I want to make the holes. I don't want to let it go all the way through, because I don't want the water just drain through the holes. I kind of want the water to get into the root ball and kind of get absorbed by the roots. So just going to poke some holes in there. This way I would have very small damage to the roots while still improving the drainage. The other thing that I can do is I can take off the moss on there, the surface moss. It is good for the look of the tree, but if it's not draining too well right now, I may just not get them. And also the birds like to pick these these moss, and it's not surviving very well too, the moss, because probably the summer is too hot. Just going to get these moss off the surface. And some soil off too. This way we are also reducing the mount on the surface, so it's not going to be as difficult to drain, hopefully. And just going to reduce the soil a little bit. I am probably also exposing a little bit of reducing a little bit of the kind of reviewing some root ball, some of the surface root. But it's not too significant at this time because it doesn't have a impressive surface root yet. What I'm going to put on, I'm going to put some of these sphagnum moss on there instead of the original just moss from the street. It's going to help retaining some water but not preventing water from draining through. Well, before that, I may as well put in some fertilizer. So I'm not going to style it for a while. So from now, it's just problem of growing the tree. Put in some fertilizer for the tree. So these moss are more functional than aesthetical. And I'm just going to water the tree after this and see if the drainage kind of become better. Let's see. Okay, the question is whether it runs from the lip of the pot or does it come out from the bottom. It is still not draining too well. So I'm going to put more holes in there. The other thing I can do is I can almost get a indent on the edge of the pot, indent of soil. Try to push the soil in a little bit on the edge so the water will not just run off the edge. I hope that I'm explaining this well. I'm kind of putting the edge on the soil in a little bit so that the soil will, instead of running off the edge, just accumulate there. Trying to make almost like a groove on the edge so that the water kind of, instead of running off from there, it just accumulate there and can go into the soil instead of running off from it. And maybe next year the only thing I would do to the tree is completely change it into the bonsai soil. Then it would not have a draining problem. Alright, I'm going to water it again and see what happens there. You can see now, instead of running off the edge, it's accumulating there, but it's not running off, so that more of it could go through the pot. Of course, it's in the end it's still going to run off when it overflows, but now it has some time to go into the soil. So that's the only thing that I would worry about this tree health-wise. Other than that, I would just let it grow until it starts to show growing the normal mature foliage again. I've also fertilized it. So we will just have to be more patient when we water this tree. I want to see water coming out from the bottom, and it's going out from the bottom, so it's doing better. Okay, so other than that, I will just take a 360 view of the tree, and that would be it for this tree for today. So this would be the front of the tree. There is a lot of growing to do, but the first thing is the tree would need to do well health-wise. So this is my first bonsai tree, and I think I made it last fall, and it's almost 1 year old, and it's still surviving, so I'm pretty happy with it. So this is some basic maintenance and some observation of the tree, and what I did to address the problems in there. So nice seeing you today, and hope you are doing well and take care. See you next time. Bye.